Hey guys, welcome to Ernest Cole Fishing. I am the Bass Man Ernest Cole, and today I'd like to talk to you guys about line. More specifically, which type of line that I personally use and what I think is the best for any given situation, whether it be cranking, top water, flipping, whatever. So let's get into it. Oh, one thing first. Hey, subscribe! Okay guys, let's get right into it. And whether you're new to fishing or you've been around for years like I have, hopefully some of these tips that I can give you today will help you out. Okay, first off guys, I'd like to talk about fluorocarbon. Now fluorocarbon, first off, it is invisible underwater to the fish. It's got a pretty good abrasion resistance, very low stretch, so you can get really good hook sets. Now I will use fluorocarbon on probably 80% of the techniques that I use, whether it be throwing a spinnerbait, crankbait, a worm, jig, creature bait, whatever it is. I use fluorocarbon on probably like I said, 80% of what I do. I like this 4-color camo from S&H Outcast. It's really good. A lot of times you can see, your line above the water to see where you are, but with this, it's kind of tough for me to see sometimes. But 80% of the stuff that I use is going to be fluorocarbon. And probably, of that 80%, most of it's going to be a 12-pound test. It's just a diameter and a line weight that I'm used to, I'm comfortable, and for the majority of stuff that I do, I'm going to use 12-pound fluorocarbon. I will go up to maybe a 17 or so if I am really flipping heavy cover, heavy bushes, and I need something to with a little bit stronger, a little bit more abrasion resistance. Then I'll go up to 17. But by and large, I'm going to stick with a 12-pound line, and I really like fluorocarbon line. Some of the drawbacks with fluorocarbon is that you got to be careful with your knots. I use probably 90% of the times that I tie a knot, I'm going to tie a polymer knot. Now that knot, you kind of have to be careful with fluorocarbon. I'm not good at showing knots, but you guys can look up a polymer knot if you don't know what it is. But you really got to be careful with fluorocarbon. And the way I do it is I'll loop my knots around, and I won't just pull it and cinch it down. I will actually kind of ease that knot really close to the eye of my hook, as close as I can get it before I cinch it down. That way I've got less chance of that fluorocarbon, because it will heat up if you in a hurry. If you just cinch it down, and it'll break, it becomes very brittle at that point. So be careful with your knots, whatever knot you decide to tie with fluorocarbon, because it will heat up and you will have a chance of failure. When I first started fishing fluorocarbon, I hated it, and that was just because I wasn't used to it, wasn't used to material. I would just tie a knot, polymer, cinch it down, and I was off. And I can't tell you how many fish and how many times I broke off pretty easily before I learned how to really tie a good knot with fluorocarbon. So like I said, 80% of the time I'm going to use a 12-pound fluorocarbon line. If you're new to fishing and you've never used fluorocarbon, what I started with years ago was all we had was monofilament. When I first started, there was 2 brands of monofilament. It was Berkeley Trilene and Stren, and that's all you had to pick from. But for if you're new to fishing especially, and you're not sure what kind of line, I would go with a good monofilament line. I use this primarily as a topwater. Because monofilament does float. I'll use it on my poppers, my chuggers, buzz baits, walking baits, whatever. Anytime I'm throwing on top water, it's probably going to be on monofilament. The only time that I don't use monofilament on top water is if I'm throwing a frog. And that is simply because that I'm going to be throwing it into some slop, and that's, you know, really not going to do me any good there, as far as, you know, it's going to hang up in the weeds more. But if you're unsure about what type of line to get you a monofilament. And, you know, I also use this, you know, if I've got a rod laying and I need to change to a worm or a light Texas rig or whatever, I'll tie it on that, and I'm good to go. When in doubt, get you a good monofilament line. Alright, next off, braid. I love braid in certain situations. In certain situations, I don't like braid. I use primarily 50-pound braid. I used to use 65 just because everybody says, well, you know, get yourself a big braid. You won't have nothing to worry about. You can throw anything on it. That wasn't the case with me. 65-pound braid, for me, for the areas that I fish, was just a little bit too much. Whenever I would get it a backlash, it was really hard to get out. And I dropped down to a 50-pound braid, and I've had no trouble at all with this braid. Primarily, what I use braid for is on my frog rod. If I'm throwing in the slop, or, you know, if I'm really heavy punching mats, lily pads, mats, if it's really thick stuff, then I'm going to tie on braid. And the reason for that is because that braid will slash through the grass and the muck, and you're more likely to get the fish out with braid than you are with, say, fluorocarbon or monofilament, just because, you know, it just won't come through it. It won't slash through that as much. One thing to note about braid is that it is not really good if you're fishing around wood. And that is because, you know, it will cut into wood. And if you got a real strong hook set and you're fighting a fish, it will, you know, get into those cracks of the wood, the forks in it, and it will dig in and you will get stuck. A lot of people will use braid with an Alabama rig, and I do as well. I also will go up to maybe a 17 or 20 pound fluorocarbon with an Alabama rig also. But by and large, braid, if you're throwing thick stuff, not around wood, because this has no stretch to it, and when you crack those fish, you're going to get them out of there. So braid is the way to go. Another thing to note about fluorocarbon is I use fluorocarbon, like I said, 80% of the time, except in the situation where I'm using spinning gear and I'm finessing. I will use fluorocarbon as a leader, but for all of my setups, I tie 15 pound braid. I'll use it as a backer on my spinning rods and reels. That's because that braid, it comes off super smooth off of that spinning gear. You can just cast it, you know, I can cast it as far further than I can anything else because it comes off so smooth. And the way that I fish it is I'll spool up almost to the end with 15 pound braid, and then I will tie a uni to uni knot. You guys can look that up. Like I said, I'm not good at showing knots, but then for a leader on all my spinning gear, you know, 8 pound test fluorocarbon leader. You know, whether I'm drop shotting or if I've got a really small swim bait, shaky head, Ned rig, I'm going to use fluorocarbon as that leader. But 15 pound braid to an 8 pound fluorocarbon leader, if you use that, you really can't go wrong. It's got good abrasion resistance. You're finessing. You're not really, you know, if you're around stuff, you're just kind of finessing through. You're not just real digging it in. So I've learned that a good all-around line for finesse fishing is that 8 pound fluorocarbon with a 15 pound braid backer. Now, that covers the monofilament, fluorocarbon, and braid. Another line that I don't see a lot of people talking about is copolymer. Now, if you're new to monofilament, or if you use it for a while, and you're looking to get into fluorocarbon and you're not real sure, a good kind of line to kind of bridge the gap between those two is copolymer line. Monofilament's super tough. It's always been super tough. Maybe a little bit more than fluorocarbon, just because of the stretch. Monofilament's really going to give you a lot of stretch, where fluorocarbon is not. And kind of in the middle of that stretch is copolymer. As far as abrasion resistance, it's kind of, you know, kind of in the middle. It is neutrally buoyant, which means, you know, once you get in that water column, it's going to stay there. Personally, I have not used it yet on top water, so but being neutrally buoyant, if you're throwing probably a buzzbait, it shouldn't give you trouble, or a like a whopper plopper or something you're going to continually moving, shouldn't give you any trouble. I've not tried it on a popper yet, so I can't tell you about that. But if you're looking to kind of bridge the gap between a monofilament and a fluorocarbon, then check out a copolymer and give that a try. I would recommend that to any of you guys out there. All right, guys, that's going to get it as far as, you know, which type of lines I use for which situations. Like I said, 80% of the time I'm going to use a fluorocarbon. Be careful with your knots. One thing about knots with a braid, I do not tie a polymer knot with braid, just because I can't really get a good I can't tie it real good, personally, myself. When I'm using straight braid, I will use an improved clinch knot. When I was growing up, we called it a noose knot. It's, you know, you guys can look up improved clinch knot, and it'll tell you how to tie that. For me, on braid, that has been the easiest knot that I've found to tie braid with. It's never had a failure on me. It holds good. It's easy to tie. I can tie it in, you know, 10 seconds. Same with, you know, any kind of other knot. You know, you learn a good knot and get it down tight. Now, as far as knots go, from a braid to a fluorocarbon, I used a blood knot, I think it's called, or a uni to uni knot. Excuse me, that's right, a uni to uni knot. That is a knot, you guys can look that up. That's a great knot for splicing the braid to fluorocarbon. I've never had that knot fail on me. Your line will break before that knot will. I've had that much confidence in that line. So take your time with it though, because you can get it tangled up. But alright guys, that's going to about get it for me for today as far as which line I use for which situation. I hope I haven't confused you guys too much on that, and if you're new to fluorocarbon or braid, I hope this has helped you out. Guys, if you use these lines and use these for different situations other than what I've mentioned here, please comment below. I would, you know, I'm always looking for that next edge to get me to the next level like everybody else. I'll leave a link to the sides here and below. You guys subscribe, check out some other videos. I greatly appreciate all your support. Check out S&H Outcast. They've got some great products, some great line. You will not be disappointed with this line, I can guarantee you. I will leave a link to their Facebook page below, and also I'll leave a phone number if you guys can call them. If you tell them that the Bass Man sent you, you're going to get yourself some free lures, some free tackle, and those will include with every order. So once again, thank you guys for watching. Get out there on the water, and I'll see you down the road.